Vandeham Shri Guru.
There's a very beautiful section of verses in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, a series of 4 verses. In the first verse, Krishna describes the nature of his transcendental form. He says, Ajopi sanavyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swamadishtaya shambhavami atmamayaya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all the living entities, by my internal energy, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. The next 2 verses are very famous. Yada yadahi dharmasya glanar bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya taratmanam shrajamyaham. Krishna says when he appears. When does he appear? When there is a decline in religiousness and a predominant rise in irreligiousness. He says, at that time I appear, yuge yuge. That's when he appears. Then he says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya tudushkritam dharma samstapanartaya shambhavami yuge yuge. In millennium after millennium, in age after age, he says, I appear, Paritranaya sadhunam, to protect and to enjoy pastimes with my devotees, to vinashaya praduskritam, to annihilate the miscreants, and to establish the principles of dharma or religion. Dharma samstapanataya. Then he says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mamiti surjuna. He says that one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So, when Krishna appears in this world, based on this series of verses in the Bhagavad Gita's 4th chapter, he appears in his original form. In other words, there is no difference between Krishna on the inside and Krishna on the outside. We, as individual living entities, experience that there's a stark difference between who we are and the form which we inhabit. But the Lord, the nature of his existence is that he's completely spiritual. In whatever form he takes, in whatever form he appears in his different incarnations that he enters or appears into this world with, they are all of the nature of the Supreme Lord. And when he comes, he performs various pastimes. He enjoys many pastimes with his devotees. He performs many superhuman activities, very uncommon activities, and he establishes the principles of religion. And so it is, he says, if we understand the nature of his form, the nature of his activities that he displays within this material world, when we understand that, when we have faith in that, when we give up this body, we no longer accept another birth within this material world. So there's a great benediction given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And so from time to time, Krishna enters into this material sphere to perform these activities, to annihilate the miscreants, to enjoy pastimes with his devotees, and to establish the principles of religion. And so it is that Krishna appeared just over 500 years ago in the form of Lord Chaitanya or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This appearance of Lord Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya is indicated in texts like Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll give one such example. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a very beautiful verse. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sangopangasra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtanam Prayayir Yajantihi Sumedasham. In the age of Kali, those who are actually intelligent perform the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord to worship the incarnation of God who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself, and he's accompanied by his associates, by his servants, by his weapons, and by his confidential companions. So it is said in this verse, Krishna Varnam, that incarnation of Krishna, he's always chanting Krishna. Even though he's Krishna himself, he's always singing the name of Krishna. But he's a Krishna. Even though he's Krishna himself, he is not Krishna. In this context, Krishna does not indicate the name Krishna, but it indicates the color of Krishna. Krishna, one of its synonyms, is darkish or blackish. So that incarnation of Krishna, who is not darkish, who is not externally manifesting the mood of the Supreme Lord, but he's always singing Krishna. He appears along with his Sangha, Pangastra, Parshadam. He appears with his associates and his weapons and so on. And by appearing and he himself accepting the practice of Sankirtan, he establishes the religion of the age of Kali Yuga. And those who are Sumedasha, Yajanti, they worship him through the chanting of this holy name. Yajanti hi Sumedasha. Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar. So this indication is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, there were many devotees, contemporary associates of his, and those who came just after, who made biographical narrations of his pastimes and teachings. The foremost of those biographical works that delineate the pastimes and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya is known as the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a very great devotee and poet by the name of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. This Chaitanya Charitamrita is presented by Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami with Bengali transliteration, the word for word meanings, the translations into English, as well as elaborate commentaries on many of the verses. This Chaitanya Charitamrita is a source of great happiness for the devotees who want to not only read about the important activities that Lord Krishna performed when he came as Lord Chaitanya, but it delineates the essential philosophical teachings that Lord Chaitanya left for us. What I'd like to speak about today is the significance of the first 14 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Chaitanya Charitamrita itself is divided into three sections: the Adi Leela, or the beginning section, the Madhya Leela, or the middle section, and the Antya Leela, or the ending section. The overall breakup of it is that the Adi Leela deals with the philosophical basis for Lord Chaitanya's appearance, his identity, his associates. It chronicles in very briefly his appearance, some of the pastimes he performs in Navadvip, and culminates when he accepts the renounced order of life, or the ashram of sannyas. The Madhya Leela chronicles the first 6 years of Lord Chaitanya's life as a renunciant, where he travels throughout India, where he travels to Vrindavan, and where he enjoys many pastimes with his associates who would visit him in Jagannath Puri in Orissa, where he settled in after taking sannyas. The Antya Leela chronicles the last 18 years of his pastimes in this world, where he increasingly enters into a state of transcendental madness, where he tastes and becomes increasingly absorbed in meditation on the holy name of Krishna and the pastimes of Krishna. So it's a very, very beautiful work. However, let's look at the first 14 verses. The first 2 verses, the author Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives general obeisances to his spiritual master and to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. In the 3rd verse, he glorifies Lord Chaitanya by speaking what his identity is. He says that Yadvaitam Brahmopanishadi Tarapyasya Thanubha Yatmantaryami Purushaiti Aswamsa Vibhava Sareshwarya Purna Yahiha Bhagavanasa Swayamayam Na Chaitanyaj Krishna Jagati Param Tattva Paramiha. What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the bodily effulgence of the Lord. Your Atmantaryami Purushaiti Aswamsa Vibhava. And the Lord, who is known as the Super Soul, is but a plenary expansion of the Lord. But Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full in all opulences. He is the absolute truth, and there is no other truth superior to him. Sareshwarya Purna Yahiha Bhagavanasa Swayamayam Na Chaitanyaj Krishna Jagati Param Tattva Paramiha. So in the 2nd chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami elaborates on this verse by giving many indications from various scriptures that yes, indeed, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna and he is the Supreme Lord. But then we may say, just as we saw in the Bhagavad Gita verses, why Krishna appears: to associate with his devotees, to exhibit various pastimes, to establish his principles of religion, and to annihilate the demons. So similarly, when Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya, he has many reasons why he appears. These different reasons why the Lord appears can be categorized into 2 broad groups. Why he appears for others' benefit, namely the external reasons for the Lord's appearance, and why he appears for his own pleasure, or the internal reasons for the Lord's appearance. And if we examine even ourselves, when we do things for many varied reasons. There's not any single reason we might do things. Even the simplest of things we may do in this world, we do it for many reasons. So similarly, the Lord, when he appears for many reasons, as was outlined in the Bhagavad Gita. But when dealing with Lord Chaitanya, let's be a bit specific. So in the 4th verse of the Adi Leela and the 5th and 6th verses, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the external and the internal reasons for the appearance of the Lord. And these reasons are described more elaborately in the 3rd and 4th chapters of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And what are those reasons? The external reasons, 1, is to please his devotee Advaitacharya. Advaitacharya is an incarnation of Sadashiva and Mahavishnu. And when he saw the impending state of affairs of this present age of Kali, he petitioned the Lord to come by worshipping his Shalagram Shila with Ganges water and Tulasi, and loudly called the Lord to appear in this world. And so to please his devotee Advaita, Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya. Secondly, the Lord appears in the age of Kali for the purpose of establishing the Yuga Dharma of the age, and that is the practice of Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy names of God. So these are the external reasons why the Lord appears. So what are those reasons why the Lord appears for himself? The external reasons are described in the 3rd chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the internal reasons are described in the 4th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita's Adi Leela. What are those internal reasons? Who is the best devotee of Krishna? That is Srimati Radharani. So Lord Chaitanya appears to relish the position and the love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya appears in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And when we love someone, we are better able to appreciate the qualities that person has, that person possesses. So when Lord Chaitanya appears to relish the mood and the love of Srimati Radharani, when Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya to relish that mood and love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna, how does he do it? He does it by relishing the sweetness of the qualities of Lord Krishna. And when Radharani, in her love, relishes the sweet and sublime qualities that Krishna has, she experiences a certain amount of thrill, a certain amount of happiness. So, the third internal reason why Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya is he wants to relish that happiness that only Srimati Radharani tastes to the utmost degree of the relishing of her love for Krishna and the qualities that Krishna possesses. So this is described in the 4th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita as Adi Leela. So what are the reasons why Krishna appears as Lord Chaitanya? He appears to please his devotee Advaitacharya and to propagate or establish the religious practice of the age of Kali Yuga, which is the chanting of the holy names of God. And why does Krishna appear as Lord Chaitanya? For his own benefit, to relish the position and love of Srimati Radharani, to relish the sweetness of the qualities that Krishna possesses, and to relish the happiness that is derived in that relationship, as it is tasted by Srimati Radharani. It's a very, very intimate thing that we have the opportunity to enter into the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. But that verse which I quoted at the start of this presentation, the Lord appears not by himself, but he appears with his associates. He appears with his expansions. He appears with his weapons. And in this age of Kali Yuga, there are 5 personalities who appear together. What are those 5 personalities? Who are those 5 personalities rather? Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So Pancha Tattva, the absolute truth, appears in 5 features. That absolute truth, Krishna, appears in 5 features. Who has manifested himself in 5 as a devotee, as the expansion of a devotee, as the incarnation of a devotee, as a pure devotee, and as the devotional energy of the Lord. It sounds complex, but I'll break it down quite simply for you and also very briefly. We hear this mantra every time we come to a Hare Krishna temple. Generally, before we begin chanting the names of Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We chant this mantra. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And this mantra is known as the Pancha Tattva mantra. And these 5 different aspects of the absolute truth are described in this mantra. So, there is Lord Chaitanya, who is the incarnation of a devotee, who is a devotee himself, Bhakta Rupa. He appears as a devotee, that is Lord Chaitanya. And the first expansion of Krishna is Balaram, and that is Swarupa, the expansion of a devotee, and that is none other than Lord Nityananda. So Lord Nityananda is Bhakta Swarupa. And who is Lord Nityananda and some of his pastimes as it relates to Chaitanya Charitamrita are described in the 5th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in the verses I was describing, the 5th and 6th verses give the internal reason for the advent of Lord Chaitanya, which is expanded in chapter 4. But verses 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, 5 verses, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the glories of Lord Nityananda. In the 12th and 13th verses, he describes specifically Advaita Acharya, and this is elaborated on in the 6th chapter of the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the 14th verse is where he glorifies the Panchatattva as a whole, which includes Gadadhar Pandit and Srivas, who I will describe shortly. And this is elaborated on in the 7th chapter of the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Nityananda is Balaram himself, and he exemplifies the quality of complete service to Lord Chaitanya. Just as Balaram is one of the primary servants of Lord Chaitanya, similarly, when he appears as Nityananda, he serves the Lord by spreading the chanting of the holy name, by spreading the glories of Sankirtan in different parts of India, and he exemplifies the ultimate limit of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Then we have Advaita Acharya, who is Bhakta Avatar, who is the incarnation of a devotee. And as I mentioned, he is none other than Mahavishnu and Sadashiva, who appears in the form of Advaita Acharya. And he prayed fervently for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to appear in this world. And he also embodies the mood of a servant. Next we have Gadadhar Pandit, who is described as Bhakta Shaktikam, the devotional energy of the Lord. And he is none other than Srimati Radharani. And in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, he was one of the constant companions that the Lord had from his very childhood in Navadvip up until he took sannyas and remained in Jagannath Puri, Orissa. Some very, very beautiful pastimes that he shares with Gadadhar Pandit, who is the incarnation of the devotional energy of the Lord. And finally, we have Bhakta Akyam, the pure devotee. So who is that? That is Srivas Pandit, who appeared before Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip as well, and he is actually an incarnation of Narad Muni. And he assisted Lord Chaitanya by the organization of the Sankirtan movement. So these first 14 verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita are elaborated in the first 7 chapters of the Adi Leela. And it provides a very sound philosophical foundation for the proper understanding of the pastimes of the Lord. The understanding of the Lord and the entering into the beauty of his pastimes is not just a philosophical exercise, but it's an exercise when rooted in a very strong foundation of proper understanding. It has the benefit of erupting into our hearts, that when we study the pastimes of the Lord, when we hear the pastimes of the Lord, knowing that this is not just an ordinary great personality, but it's actually the Lord himself who appears in this world, walks with us, talks with us, plays with us, and engages with us in a very personal way, then these pastimes enter into our heart and erupt in joyousness. It erupts in purification. And as Bhagavad Gita says, when we understand these pastimes that the Lord performs with his devotees, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, when the Lord appears and performs his activities, they are not by himself, they are with his devotees. And the principal associates that the Lord performs his pastimes with as Lord Chaitanya are the Panchatattva, the Lord himself, Lord Balaram, who is Nityananda Prabhu, Mahavishnu Sadashiva, who is Advaita Acharya, Srimati Radharani, who is the devotional energy of the Lord, as Gadadhar Pandit, and as the devotee himself, Srivas Thakur, who is an incarnation of Narad Muni. When we understand these pastimes, when we understand with the proper consciousness, with the proper mood, and Tyaktva Deham Punarjanma Naiti Mamiti, we do not take birth again in this material world. And what is the core teachings of the Panchatattva? What are the core teachings of Lord Chaitanya? Is that Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagi Nirvapanam. That if we want to experience complete purification in this very life and have our devotion to God grow and expand, Param Vijayate Shri Sankirtanam, we engage in the attentive and affectionate chanting of the names of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Navagoravvaram, Navapushpasharam, Navabhavadaram, Navalasyaparam, Navahasyakaram, Navahemavaram, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram, Navapremayutam, Navanita Shucham, Navaveshakritam, Navapremarasam, Navadhavilasat, Shubha Premamayam, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram. Gora 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 Hari Jaya Gora 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 Hari Jaya Gora Hari. Hari Bhakti Param, Hari Namadaram, Karajapya Karam, Hari Nama Param, Nayane Satatam, Pranaya Shrodaram, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram, Satatam Gyanata Bhavata Paharam, Paramartha Parayana Lokagatim, Navalehakaram, Jagata Paharam, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram. Namo Vadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram, Pranamami Shachi Sutagoravvaram. Gora 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 Hari Jaya Gora 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 Hari Jaya Gora Hari. Jaya Gora Hari. Parama Karuna Pahudvijana Nitai Gaura Chanda